Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Well, that is Galatians 2:20. I am Sandra Flach. Welcome to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. Thank you for joining me today. This is our first episode for the month of June. And a few years ago, we started a tradition on the podcast where throughout the month of June, we focus on the dads. Father's Day, of course, is in the month of June. And we really want to be able to offer some extra encouragement for dads throughout the month. So, of course, they're for moms too. Many of our listeners are foster and adoptive moms. So if you are mom and you're a regular listener, but maybe your husband isn't a regular listener, feel free to share these episodes with him so that he can be encouraged too. But whether you're mom or dad, you're going to be able to get something out of each one of these episodes throughout the month of June. So speaking of bringing that encouragement to moms and dads, if you are raising kids who were prenatally exposed to alcohol or other drugs, you know that adds an extra layer of hard to this already difficult and challenging parenting journey. It's a layer that can cause parents to become isolated, discouraged. It can be very overwhelming. I know of adoptions that have been disrupted, oftentimes because there just wasn't an understanding or adequate training for the foster or adoptive parents, because there isn't, in most places, there is not that training as part of foster parent training when it comes to understanding fetal alcohol spectrum disorders and whatnot. You get some trauma training, but not what you really need if you're parenting kids who were prenatally exposed. And a majority of children in child welfare have been prenatally exposed. So we don't want you to feel isolated. We want you to be equipped for this journey, and we want to wrap around you. We have a support community that you could be part of to do that. So please check it out.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond, invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
Did you know that FASD is the leading cause of developmental and learning disabilities worldwide? You probably didn't. Most people don't. But in the United States, actually, 1 in 20 school-age kiddos has been prenatally exposed to alcohol. 80% of the children in foster and adoptive placements have an FASD, and most are not diagnosed, or they are misdiagnosed with that whole alphabet soup of diagnoses, ADHD, ADD, ODD, RAD, PTSD, all of the things, right? So many parents and caregivers are struggling because they don't actually have that adequate training and understanding the impacts of alcohol on the developing brain. And as a mom of an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, both diagnosed when they were little with fetal alcohol syndrome, I know firsthand how isolating and how difficult the parenting journey can be, and how vitally important it is for us to have the proper training and understanding on how this impacts the brain and how the symptoms of FASD are behavioral. So the challenging behaviors we're dealing with are actually symptoms to a brain-based condition. So not only do we have the support group, I offer online and in-person training and coaching, as well as this podcast is often a great support as well. And in June, I have 2 online workshops coming up, Thursday, June 6th, so like right around the corner at noon Eastern. It's free. So if you can sign up and participate, it's free. I call it a lunch and learn. It's an introduction to FASD. It's great for parents, caregivers, and it's great for anybody working or interacting with our kids, be it, the babysitter, the grandparent, our adult kids who maybe don't understand their younger siblings who have an FASD, the school teachers, youth group leaders, Sunday school teachers, anybody who really interacts with our kids and should have a better understanding of how their brain works. So that is Thursday, June 6th, noon Eastern time. It is free, and it's 1 hour. And then I'll have a little bit of a deeper dive workshop, a 3-hour FASD workshop using the neurobehavioral model. And that is coming up on Thursday, June 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And there is a fee for that one, but you can sign up for both of those on our website. We do them through Zoom, so you would get the Zoom link when you sign up. And if you really want to go to FASD school, if you really want to go deep, coming up in October, I am offering our biggest deep dive on FASD using the facets model. It's 6 3-hour sessions. So it's 18 hours of content. It's interactive. We do it through Zoom as well. That is also coming up in October. So it'll be 6 Thursdays in a row. So you would sign up, get all the details, go to our website, justicefororphans.ny.org. You can click on the training button at the top of the page and you'll see FASD in the dropdown. And if you click on FASD, it will take you to, you would scroll through all of the FASD content on that page, and it will take you to where you can sign up for the support group, where you can sign up for the different workshops, things like that. So I hope you'll check that out. Also, if you are not yet a subscriber or follower of this podcast on whatever platform that you listen to podcasts, or maybe you are watching us now on YouTube, please be sure to follow, subscribe, leave a review if you are listening through Apple Podcasts. That's a huge help to any podcaster, because when you leave a review, when you follow and subscribe, it just helps the podcast come up higher in the list. When somebody's searching for a podcast about adoption or foster care, will show up higher in the list. And we want to make sure that every parent and caregiver has an opportunity to be encouraged and equipped through this podcast. So we hope that you will do that as well. So now to our dad guest today, a guest for our dads. He's actually not an adoptive or foster dad, but he has adopted siblings. So Joshua Legg is passionate about helping men grow in Christ and seeing marriages healed. He understands the complexities of families who are parenting children with special needs and is well-versed in fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, both professionally and as a brother of a sibling with FAS. Joshua has fulfilled that passion as a pastor and through discipleship mentoring and now coaching. He and his wife, Heather, offer marriage intensives, drawing from their own journey and walking beside couples as they heal. Please welcome to the show, Joshua Legg. Hi, Joshua.
Hi, good morning, Sandra.
Good morning. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's an honor, really. It's an honor. I'm excited. I've heard about your story, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've heard a little bit about you because I actually know your mom.
Yes, you do.
There's a segue.
Yeah.
And your mom, Chris Trout, she has been a guest on this show before, and she's an adopted mom. raising kids with FASD. She's the CEO, I believe, and a marriage and family therapist with the Papillon Center there in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I think she still
Yeah.
serves on the board of FASD United.
Yeah.
So she's doing amazing work in this space, and she let me know that so is her son. So I said, let's get him on the show and talk all about this stuff. So would love to hear, your story about how adoption and FASD has touched your life.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, being a bio kid, right? It's a little bit different. That for years I prayed for a little brother. Like originally there was three of us, and I wanted a brother so bad. And finally, I got a little brother, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Things were just different, and so at that time, as far as FASD, that fetal alcohol syndrome, I don't think any of us were aware of it. Things were just a little different. But the privilege of growing up like that is that we really were learning to live an unmasked life. It just looked different. You had to kind of be in the moment a lot more. We learned that it takes the whole family to do life together. And also that life gets messy, and for us, it got real messy, so fast forwarding in my teenage years, my parents decided to adopt more. And so at this time, we're a blended family, and my mom has adopted, or my parents had adopted two more. And so the same thing again. But this time, like you said, with her credentials, with her learning, she pressed in because there was a need here. And so it really changed the way that our whole family processed everything we do, And so, for me, being a bio kid, wow, it's such a gift. I would say that my nature isn't. It's a little legalistic. It wouldn't have been so loving without having been impressed with my own family. And so that has transformed my approach to really have a heart for those that, it's just different. It's not right and it's not wrong. It's just different. And often it's messy, and that's okay. So that's just kind of to jump right through it. That's been the journey. I was a teen dad, my wife, teen mom. My wife come into it, and she has done even more phenomenal than I have. Not only did we kind of get to adopt it to raise our own kids in TBRI, but she did it long before I did. Right, like I'm the man. I had so much more to prove, and she just was a humble spirit. So a privilege to have somebody to walk with that has been a light in my darkness.
Yeah. So now have you adopted you and your wife?
No, we haven't. No, we just raised our two kids. We considered foster care while we were youth ministers. And our house was not big enough for it. And we've remained in a small house just to be open in the opportunity of ministry. It allowed some openness there, but no, we never did step into adoption ourselves.
Yeah. But with your relationship with your siblings that are adopted, how are those relationships today?
Oh, it's phenomenal. My little brother's still my little brother, right? So even though he's an adult, and we have learned that to walk with him is there's going to be things that he doesn't process like you would expect, So just last month, he traveled to South Dakota. He planned a trip and he went out of town, and he was determined to do it on his own. So he's in his mid-30s. He buys a plane ticket, and this is FAS, right? He buys a plane ticket for certain days. He schedules different days off of work because the times don't, it just didn't line up. And so he's got to take points at work for missing whenever he's supposed to have scheduled the right time up. He rented a hotel in a town that he wasn't going to, so he didn't know how to get to his hotel or where it was. He rented a car, but had no way to figure out what car he had rented because he had just got the cheapest, he collected. So he he very much has the language and keeps up. If you ask the questions, he answers right. But whenever you do the actual living, it's like, no, we missed it. But the reality was, it reminded me, it's like, we're all supposed to be walking with him. And
Mm.
I forget, as my little brother, sometimes I poke, but I don't actually build up and strengthen. I don't always support. So it was a reminder for me. And to
Yeah.
my little sister, I just, man, I love loving on her, but she does the same thing. She's not responsible to go into the store by herself, and those things are okay. So we try to love well.
Yeah. Now it's your sister, I believe, because I got to meet um your sister, I believe, with your mom last year in DC for the FASD United, and she attended the Red Shoes Gala, and she had made her own dress with the little butterflies all over it.
Yeah. Yep.
So precious and so
Yeah.
talented.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I love that. I love your heart, for your siblings and for that understanding about FASD and being able to, wanting to help families. Um, and then especially dads. I know you have a heart for dads, for fathers, especially adoptive and foster dads. You understand, raising kids from hard places, kids with FASD, really hard. So what would you say to those fathers out there who are listening, about how this can affect their marriage and, what they can do to help in their marriage?
Oh yeah, it's so good because for me, being a sibling in the setting, my childhood got messy, and I come out of that, like I said, with a very legalistic mindset, and so my wife was a whole lot of grace for a long time. What I would say about it for dads especially is not to let the mess define them, not to let overcoming the mess become their mission. It's The call is to love in the midst of it. The call is to be a passionate dad in the midst of it, because as parents, we are co-heirs of
Mhm.
grace. So it's like,
Yeah.
as a dad, I'm extending grace to a child that was born in a fallen world. I'm raising them up, and I'm doing that with my bride. And so for me, I would consider that in the mess, man, learn to play well. learn
Mm.
to learn to get messy when it's messy, play when you can, always be a notch below whatever the kid is, always be bringing them down whenever they're upset, bringing them up when they're down. It's just that, it's that co-regulation. But the passion for me is, what I would say is, play so that they know that they're loved.
Mm.
And whenever it's really messy, um, don't forget about your bride.
Mm.
It's that call. Ephesians 5:33 calls men. He says, Paul says, it's the call, the command of a man is to meet the felt need of his wife first. And
Mm.
so whenever it feels like we can't and it feels hopeless, I would say, step in and minister to your bride.
Yeah. Don't ever say something like, well, you wanted to do this. This was your idea. Never say
You
that,
know,
right?
you know what? My wife has extended so much grace. I say the stupidest things. But I would honestly, let me say to dads, listen, you are going to say really ignorant things. In your head, it made perfect sense. Keep it there. Take it to the cross. Don't let it come out. And when it does, like, just step right back in. Your responsibility is to minister to her felt need of love. So when you do, don't be so proud to apologize. And that goes for our kids too. Whenever we parent wrong, now I think we need to address it. I think we need to be real about it. And then we also need to go back into our prayer closet and address it with the cross before the Father. But then our brides need to know, like, hey, I got off course. I messed up. I misstepped. And to say I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah.
And then whatever her felt need is, minister to it.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I would say be teachable, because I have to say that's been one of the things about my husband. We have 8 kids, 3 biological, 5 through adoption, and our youngest 2 are now like young adults. One is 18, one is almost 21. They still live at home. They both have fetal alcohol syndrome. So it's like we're in the hardest season of parenting when most people our age are empty nesters and enjoying, all of that wonderful stuff. But over the years, and I think this is common, I was the one that went out and got the training, and I was the one reading all the books and learning all of the things and then trying to implement the things at home with our kids, whether it was the TBRI stuff, the FASD training that I got. And what was really beneficial to our marriage and to our family was my husband was teachable. Like he wanted to learn what I was learning, and he wanted to try it and practice it. And he trusted me to know, like, okay, let's try this new thing. Let's try this connected parenting thing, whatever it was. And was always willing to learn. And I feel like that's so key for dads, because when you're not on that same page, it makes it even harder. What do you say?
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Teachability is such a good word. And and for me, it goes along with that. The word of being co-heirs of grace, right? Let's say that moms are the ones that's got their finger on the pulse of, hey, this TBRI thing is working, or this teaching is coming to town. We need to be present in it. That's being co-heirs of grace, right? Like I can hear from my wife, and like, yes, I trust that you're right. We need this, and being willing, like you said, just being willing. I would rather try something and maybe it's not right, but we tried, as opposed to walk around defeated. So many men all the time just feel defeated. They have defeated spirits. They have oppressed spirits. And a man is not going to lead his wife or his family in the order of God if he is oppressed and defeated. So I think teachability is a wonderful word for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. You're a pastor with a pastor's heart, a passion for men and dads. Tell us about that. Where did that come from?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be raw with you right here. It come from my own heart. I had a very hard heart. I had a very legalistic heart. I lacked compassion. I lacked empathy. I loved my wife, but it had constraints. And it wasn't until, and that's what I love about the Galatians 2:20. It wasn't until I realized that when I died to myself, or when I went before the cross, that what Christ had deconstructed in the grave, the boundaries, the confines of the flesh, that he wanted to raise up and be him in me, that I no longer had to perform. But I was set free from performance, and I was able to move in. And it wasn't until that took place that started to develop a Solomon's attitude towards my wife. That idea, that sachet of mirth that drips, that idea that if I'm always reminded of the cross, then my ewe-lamb, my wife, my desire is held up to God. That's my first responsibility. And so I realized that a lot of my upbringing was just a bad teaching. It was a bad theology. And so it stirred in me that I saw a lot of men walking around defeated. And as that began to change in me, I wanted others to have the same freedom that I had. And so that really was probably the birth of it. As far as growing in the passion of men, was really finding that the order of the home was, and again, it was our own home. Whenever my heart was stepping the way that God had intended, whenever I was putting God first and I was leading, our home had an order to it that was ordained. It was just, it was a light in a world around it that wasn't. And so that really is what it stemmed from. And then, marriage, passion for marriage come out of, we were teen parents, and so life is messy anyway. And so being teen parents, we had a lot to navigate. We both brought our own family shadows, our own genealogy into the marriage, and it wasn't a holy place. And so as the Lord was doing the work in us, it just began to, it's like, at first we just wanted more and more and more, and then we realized, like, no, we want others to have this now. And so again, I've been very graced in that my wife has often preceded me in a lot of these. But the word that you use, teachability, that being teachable, has just allowed the work of God to take place in our home. So that really is what's birthed most of the ministry.
Wow. Love that. And carrying that over to dads, because we're hoping we've got some dads listening today.
Yeah.
What would you say about the dad's role in parenting kids from hard places?
Oh, it's everything. It's everything, right? Isn't it? So I'm going to step back. I know that I referenced it a couple of times this morning, because I believe it's in 1 Timothy chapter 3. But that word that we are co-heirs in grace, it's a joint work. The role of dads is that God set man in that order of the house, and so as He set the order of the home, dads have such a responsibility to lead the home. But the word says, and I'm pretty sure it's 1 Timothy 3:7 says that the first responsibility is that we don't cause our wives to stumble. And so think about the felt need of a wife. If she is the one doing all the work of a child, then I'm causing her to stumble. He says, if that's the case, then I'm causing my own prayers to be hindered. And so he really shapes the idea that now my responsibility is not to be passive in leadership of the home, or just to be the law. Like dad shouldn't be the threat. Like mom shouldn't use dad as the threat when your dad gets home kind of attitude. That's not right either. And I know it happens, but dad shouldn't be the threat, but they absolutely should be that authority that holds order to the home. That means to me, first and always, it's minister to the bride, minister to the bride, minister to the bride. Hold up our wives. If we're co-heirs and she's had a hard day, no matter what, I'm going to put on the posture the best that I can. If I'm struggling with that, I need to be able to say to my wife, hey, I'm really struggling. I need a few minutes. I'm going to ask for God's help. Holy Spirit, lead me, because I want to jump in with these babies and I want to get dirty. I want to play, whatever they need. And so it's I don't know, it's everything. Dad's role is everything, right? It's I would say, if I could say there's a word for it, it's passion. It's passion.
Yeah. Love that. And you are certainly passionate about ministering to men and married couples. So you offer one-on-one coaching for men, you offer marital coaching, and marriage intensive. So would you unpack each of those for us?
Okay, yeah. So either way, whether it's marriage intensive, whether it's marriage coaching, or if it is a one-on-one, we're going to start with the gospel. The first thing I want to know is that you and I agree on the word that we're teaching. And so we're going to start at the cross. And going into that, as soon as we've affirmed or confirmed that's what we're working from, and that's our understanding. Next, we're going to, in both, this will happen in the marriage and on a one-on-one, we're going to do a genogram. We're going to look at family history, just a little bit. I want to know what the family shadow is that's coming over, right? Because what I've found is there's always trailing spirits, and when we stop or we get stuck, they just set up tent over us and tend to oppress our spirit. And God's delivered us there. So once we've established that, I feel like I can relate enough to remind them, hey, this isn't your calling. This is your family calling you back, but this isn't, God birthed you anew. And so with one-on-one with men, I'm going to ask how intense do they want to be? A lot of guys think that they want it all, that they want the full, the heavy words, and they do in bite-sized pieces, not usually, And the reality is, if you're meeting with a man and he's already looking for help, and I admire a man that will say, I need help. I admire a man that will step out and look for extra. And so that's no shame. But whenever he's already vulnerable, it's my responsibility to steward his vulnerability, as well as it is whenever I can learn where he's come from the cross and where his family history comes from, that I can steward his calling from God. And that I'm joining him in that. with marriage, it's the same process. I'm championing the marriage. And so a wife or a husband, as much as I can, I want my wife to get involved there, at the very least prayer. So we'll sign a waiver that my wife can participate in the prayer of that. Because I do believe it's the man's order there to lead his family. But unless I said as the shepherd, I'm a little soft-serving with a woman if I'm teaching there. So that means that I still want to champion the marriage. I still want to see, like, what is it? You both have gifts. What is it that's coming together, that's uniting? What is the gift of the marriage, right? That's the fruit that God's called forth. And an intensive is going to be that idea that we're probably going to we're going to work a little deeper on the cross, in that when we come to the statement of marriage, it is birthed or it's united in sonship. Paul uses the language that Jesus, the anointed, released the spirit of his sonship. And so that's what's stirring in us. And so our life is no longer our own, but the life that we're living is lived through him. And so we're going to focus marriage on that. And then how do two people of sonship carry the gift of grace into children who are born of the flesh, right? Because we all have to be born of the first Adam, and so we're all born of the flesh. And so we have this responsibility to carry our babies in grace and to lead them, and I think that I think that scripture is very clear on the home needing to be in order before we press outward into the world. So the purpose is still the same, that we want to work as a team. We want to champion the marriage to honor God. And so that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, that is great. And you have a website where, if listeners were interested, if any of the dads out there were interested in the coaching, or the marriage intensive, they could go to learn more and sign up. What's your website?
Yeah, so it's Joshua Legg Coaching. They can connect with me. There's a button there for them to connect. That will give them an email. We're going to start out with just a short chat to make sure that we bear witness with each other. And if we do, then we can jump into the work. But yeah, it's Joshua Legg Coaching. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So joshualeggcoaching.com.
It is .com. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll make sure that we put a link in our show notes, so that way listeners, if you want to go check it out, it'll be easy to find. And we opened the show with the scripture from Galatians 2:20. I'll read it again. I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. You picked the verse that we opened up with today. So what does that verse mean to you?
Oh, wow. For so much of my life, I was trying to live good for Jesus. So much of my life, I was trying to live good, that the Father could love me. And especially with kiddos from hard places, that idea that you have to work to be loved. And if you mess up, then how do I reconcile that so that I can be loved again? And another translation says, now the essence of this new life, it's no longer mine, but the anointed one. He lives life through me, and we live in union as one. And it's just that idea that I'm empowered by faith to live. It's not anything that I can do, because of grace and through faith, I live, and I can't obtain the Father's love. He loves me, and I can't diminish the Father's love. He loves me. And so I would say the same with dads. If I could encourage dads, just like, hey, you know what, you're gonna mess up. Like that's true. But man, I don't do this through Joshua Legg strength. I do this through the power of the anointed one, the Messiah love that's been released in me. And so really I'm on a journey trying to learn how to live from Messiah's love and not from Joshua's good works. So that verse has just been stemming that for quite some time for me.
That is awesome. So as I mentioned, most of our listeners are adoptive and foster parents and caregivers. And, we're figuring we got some dads listening this month, especially during the month of June. But either way, would you leave us as we close with some words of encouragement for both both parents, but then also maybe something a little extra for the dads.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. First off, what a gift it is. Just to have access to fathers. Wow, what a gift.
Mm.
For moms and dads both, I would encourage you, you're stewards of grace. And that means that most of the work is being done in you before it's being done through you. And so definitely be before you do.
Mm.
If you could afford each other a few moments of silence a day, afford each other some space to be with God before you have to do for God. Um, Dads, man, champion the home, right? Because you are the one who are commanded to lead the home. You are the one who are commanded specifically, and I love this, to meet the felt need of your bride. It
Mm.
comes before the order of children is to minister to your bride. And so, dads, if I could say, whatever your wife's love language is, first off, know it. Second, I'm gonna encourage you here. As soon as you know that you know it, it's gonna change. God has rigged marriage like that, right? Like there's guys want to know the combination, and there's no combination. It's intimacy. You're going to step into her felt need and minister to her, and then get me play. I forgot how to play. I pulled away from play, and if I could do anything more than what I've done, it's to. I'm not interested in the adults in the room seeing me if I can capture the kiddos. I want to play. And so I would encourage you, dads, just play hard. Father's Day is coming up. I honor you and I lift the Lord up. You've been charged, you've been ordained in that order. But don't look for the world to honor you. Just go play, honestly. Just go play and have fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And play builds connection, right? And that's really
Yeah.
what we're
Yes, that's
going
what we're
for.
after.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. So, Joshua, thank you so much for all that you are doing to help married couples and especially dads, men out there, husbands. Um, Such a vital resource that you're offering. So I hope some of our dads will check out your website and maybe pursue some of that coaching. Thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for being on the show today.
Hey, Sandra, it has been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for listening to the adoption and foster care journey today. I hope you were encouraged by my conversation with Joshua Legg. And I hope that you will share this episode with the dads, the foster and adoptive dads in your life, whether it be your husband or any of the dads that you know who are also on this parenting journey. Here to encourage and equip you. We have a unique and challenging journey often, most of the time, don't we, as parents of kids from hard places, kids who were, possibly prenatally exposed. I'm parenting still, my husband and I, two young adults with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. So between that and the professional training I've gotten as a facilitator of the facets neurobehavioral model, I know the challenges. I know how hard it is, and I'm passionate about supporting you in your parenting journey. So through our training, through the resources, this podcast, parent coaching, all of the things that we offer our support group, we want to make sure that you are well supported for your parenting journey, offering you stuff that, gosh, I wish I had many, many years ago when, we were in the throes of it and had no idea what was really going on. We want to make sure that you have access to good training. So check out our website, justicefororphans.ny.org. If you want to dive into some of that FASD stuff, you can look at the training tab at the top of the page and click that in the drop down. It says FASD, and then you'll be able to scroll through all the resources that we have here. There, I should say for you, there's a link to our website, a link to the training, a link to my personal website, sandraflach.com, where I blog all about the FASD stuff as well. And there'll be a link to Joshua's website as well for any of our dads or couples who are interested in some of that coaching and counseling there. So I hope that you will check that out. And check us out on social media. Justice for Orphans has, we have both a Facebook and Instagram page and the YouTube channel and a LinkedIn page. And you can find me, Sandra Flach, on Facebook and Instagram as well. So I hope you will connect with me there. And again, so grateful that you tuned in today. I'm just so grateful to have you along for the journey. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.